The lecture hall's holographic display cast a pale blue glow across hundreds of alien faces as Professor Ixnor delivered his weekly xenoanthropology lecture. Zach Still, a third-year student with iridescent scales and 4 eyes, tried to stay focused despite having heard this same dismissive speech about humans countless times before. As we can clearly see, Ixnor droned, manipulating the holographic display to show various human settlements. These primitives barely managed to achieve atmospheric flight before the Galactic Council made contact. Their industrial methods were crude, their social structures chaotic, and their physical capabilities, well, let's just say they're fortunate we arrived when we did. Scattered laughter rippled through the audience. Zach Still shifted uncomfortably in their seat, antennae twitching with mild irritation. Something about the professor's tone felt wrong, though they couldn't pinpoint why. The holographic display flickered suddenly. A brief technical glitch. For just a moment, the carefully curated presentation switched to different footage. A human female sprinting at impossible speeds through a high-gravity chamber. A male lifting what appeared to be several tons of equipment without mechanical assistance, and a child solving complex mathematical equations faster than the Academy's quantum computers. Professor Ixnor lunged for the controls, his usually composed demeanor cracking. The original presentation returned, but Zach Still had already captured images with their cybernetic eye implants, standard student equipment for note-taking. Technical difficulties, Ixnor announced, his secondary breathing sacs inflating rapidly, a sign of stress in his species, now returning to the limitations of human cardiovascular systems. But Zach Still barely heard the rest of the lecture. They were too busy analyzing the captured frames, comparing them against known physical limitations of sentient species. According to every textbook in the Academy's database, what they'd just witnessed should be impossible. Either the footage was fabricated, or, after class, Zach Still approached the lectern, waiting for other students to leave. "Professor, about the glitch." "There was no glitch," Ixnor interrupted sharply, all 4 of his hands busy gathering his teaching materials. "I suggest you focus on the approved curriculum, student Zach Still. Your thesis deadline approaches, and questioning established xenoanthropological doctrine is not the path to academic success." That evening, in their dormitory pod, Zach Still couldn't stop thinking about the professor's reaction. They accessed the Academy's database, searching for any references to enhanced human capabilities. Every search led to dead ends or clearly sanitized documents. It wasn't just an absence of information. It was deliberate removal. Using their advanced research credentials, Zach Still began a deep archive search, looking for any unaltered records from humanity's first contact period. As their terminal displayed another access denied message, a private communication pinged their neural interface. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear, looking for the truth about humans. Memory Bank 7, Section C, Archive 23. Use today's glitch timestamp as the access code. Don't get caught. Zach Still's hearts raced. They knew accessing restricted archives could end their academic career, or worse. But the question burned in their mind. What were they all being taught to fear about humanity, and why? Memory Bank 7 looked abandoned, its quantum servers humming quietly in the dim light of the Academy's deepest sublevel. Zach Still's access card shouldn't have worked here, but the mysterious timestamp code opened every door. Their footsteps echoed through empty corridors as they navigated to Section C. Archive 23's interface looked ancient compared to the sleek systems upstairs. The screen flickered to life, revealing the forgotten work of Dr. Jessica Miller, first contact xenobiologist. Her initial reports painted a drastically different picture of humanity than the current curriculum. Test Subject 47 demonstrated remarkable cellular regeneration. One entry read, "What would be fatal radiation exposure for most species appears to merely accelerate their natural healing process. They call it getting a tan. Preliminary data suggests their entire species evolved in constant exposure to their star's radiation." Zach Still's antennae twitched with excitement as they dove deeper into Miller's archives. Video logs showed humans working in environment suits rated for only half the pressure they contained. Cultural records documented humans casually discussing surviving conditions that would kill most sentient species. A particular file caught their attention. Classified. Project Endurance. The footage showed human Marines training alongside galactic peacekeepers. While other species required rest cycles every few hours, the humans kept going. They weren't just surviving. They were maintaining peak performance. They're persistence predators, Miller's notes explained. Their entire evolutionary history prepared them for sustained activity under adverse conditions. What we consider extreme, they call Tuesday. The next file made Zach Still's scales ripple with disbelief. It detailed human neural plasticity, their ability to learn and adapt. While most species specialize over millions of years, humans remain generalists, capable of mastering multiple skills within a single lifetime. Warning. Final report. The timestamp read. The implications of human adaptability cannot be understated. Their perceived weaknesses are actually advantages. Their inefficient bipedal locomotion allows tool use while moving. Their fragile skin contains enough sensors to detect environmental changes before our best equipment. Their primitive endurance hunting techniques work in conditions where our technology fails. The screen suddenly went dark. Zach Still spun around, hearts racing, but the darkness came from a power fluctuation, not discovery. When the system rebooted, a new file appeared, dated after Miller's supposed disappearance. To whoever finds this, the message began, they're going to erase my work. The Council fears what humans might become if they realize their potential. But someone has to know the truth. Their greatest strength isn't their physical capabilities. It's there. The file ended abruptly. Warning lights flashed. Someone was accessing this level. Zach Still quickly downloaded what they could, erased their traces, and headed for the exit. They had proof now, but proof of what? Not just of human capabilities, but of a systematic effort to suppress this knowledge. As they reached their dormitory, a new anonymous message arrived. Now you know. They're watching. Be careful who you trust. The annual Xenological Conference buzzed with activity as thousands of the galaxy's most prestigious academics gathered in the Grand Amphitheater. Zach Still stood backstage, data crystal clutched tightly in their upper appendage, watching Professor Ixnor deliver his keynote speech about humanity's charming but limited potential. And so we continue our sacred duty to guide these developing beings, Ixnor concluded to appreciative murmurs. Next speaker, student Zach Still, presenting their thesis on primitive species developmental patterns. Zach Still approached the podium, their scales shifting through nervous color patterns. The data crystal slotted into place, and Dr. Miller's suppressed research flickered to life above the audience. Honorable colleagues, Zach Still began, voice steady despite their racing hearts. We've been wrong. Deliberately wrong. The hologram showed humans performing feats that contradicted everything in the standard curriculum. These aren't simulations. This is classified footage from first contact research. The ambient chatter died instantly. In the sudden silence, Zach Still played Miller's recordings. Humans don't just survive in death worlds. They thrive there. Their endurance isn't primitive. It's evolutionary perfection. Their adaptability isn't random. It's their greatest weapon. Professor Ixnor stood, his scales flushed with anger. This is unauthorized data. Student Zach Still clearly fabricated. A loud crash interrupted him. The human janitor, Jake Martinez, had accidentally dropped his cleaning unit. Then, without any exo-assist gear, he lifted the 3-ton machine one-handed. The amphitheater erupted in chaos. Been wondering when someone would notice, Jake said, grinning. You know, I've been working here 3 years. Not one of you ever questioned how I move equipment alone. Security drones descended from the ceiling, but Jake casually swatted them aside like insects. Academics scattered, some fleeing, others recording frantically on their neural interfaces. The suppression of human capabilities goes beyond academia. Zach still continued over the commotion. Dr. Miller discovered this conspiracy before she vanished. But she left evidence. Evidence that humans aren't just capable. They're extraordinary. The hologram shifted to show human children solving quantum equations through intuitive leaps, soldiers performing impossible physical feats, and artists creating works that induced emotional responses across all known species. Our entire understanding of human limitations was manufactured, Zach still declared. The question isn't whether humans are primitive. The question is, why did someone want us to think they were? Security forces flooded the amphitheater. As they approached the podium, Jake stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Mind if I help demonstrate some more human capabilities? The Darwin Zone loomed before Zach Still, its reinforced walls stretching higher than most academy buildings. After the conference chaos, gaining access to this restricted facility had cost them nearly all their academic credits and one possibly illegal favor from Jake Martinez. The security scan tingled across their scales as they entered. Warning signs in 17 languages lined the corridors. Extreme gravity zone, hazardous environmental conditions, no medical support available. Through the observation window, Zach still watched in fascination. A group of humans ran on what appeared to be simple treadmills, but the gravity readout showed 3.2 standard units. For comparison, most species could barely stand at 1.5. Impressive, isn't it? A voice startled them. Dr. Alexandra Torres, the facility's lead researcher, stepped out of the shadows. But this isn't even their most remarkable feature. She led Zach Still deeper into the facility. Each chamber revealed new impossibilities. Humans adapting to toxic atmospheres within days. Others developing resistance to temperatures that would cook most species. A group solving complex mathematical theorems through what they simply called hunches. We call it the human factor, Torres explained, showing holographic data streams. Most species evolve to fill a niche. Humans? They never stopped evolving. Put them in a deadly environment. Give them a week. They'll be having picnics there. In the central chamber, a human woman worked with what appeared to be a broken quantum computer. Watch this, Torres said. The woman closed her eyes, hands hovering over the machinery. Within minutes, she'd reassembled it using configurations that violated standard engineering principles. Yet it worked better than before. How? Zach Still asked, all four eyes wide. They don't know they can't, Torres laughed. Most species learn the rules, then work within them. Humans learn the rules, then treat them like suggestions. It's why the Council fears them. How do you control a species that doesn't accept limitations? A deafening alarm suddenly blared. Through the window, Zach Still saw figures in black armor entering the facility's main gate. Speaking of the Council, Torres muttered, they're here earlier than expected. Quick, take this. She handed Zach Still a data crystal. Find Dr. Miller. She's waiting in the place where it all began. Now run. Zach Still fled through the emergency exit as shots rang out behind them, their mind racing faster than their feet. The place where it all began. First contact point. Earth. They needed to decode this quickly, before those black-armored figures found them too. Behind them, they heard Torres shouting something about Operation Phoenix. The Darwin Zone's doors sealed shut with a final, ominous thud. Admiral Vex Thor's office sat at the heart of the Galactic Defense Command, its walls lined with campaign holograms from 1,000 worlds. Zach Still tried not to fidget as the imposing military leader studied Dr. Miller's data crystal. Tell me what you make of this. Vex Thor activated a classified combat recording. The footage showed a lone human operative, Thomas Reynolds, infiltrating a pirate stronghold on Nexus VI. What caught Zach Still's attention wasn't just his success, it was how he achieved it. Reynolds moved like water through the facility's defenses, adapting instantly to each security measure. When the automated systems detected him, he didn't fight them. He used their patterns against them, creating chaos within their own programming. Our best combat AIs take microseconds to calculate optimal solutions, Vex Thor noted. Reynolds isn't calculating at all. He's, what do humans call it? Improvising. Zach still answered, remembering Dr. Torres's words. They don't process linearly like our systems. They make intuitive leaps. The Admiral nodded, switching to another feed. This one showed human special forces training alongside various alien elite units. The humans weren't the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced. Yet they consistently achieved objectives through what official reports labeled as unconventional methods. We've been quietly recruiting them, Vex Thor admitted, despite the Council's classification of humans as a primitive species. Do you know why? Before Zach still could answer, Reynolds himself entered the office. The operative looked deceptively ordinary, until you noticed how he instantly logged every exit, weapon, and potential tool in the room without seeming to look at any of them. Because we're adaptable, Reynolds said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. Your advanced species spent millions of years becoming perfect at specific things. Humans, we became perfect at becoming perfect at things. Vex Thor pulled up one final recording, a human child playing a strategic war game against a military AI. The AI calculated billions of potential moves. The child simply played and won. The Council fears this potential, the Admiral continued. But some of us see the bigger picture. There's something coming. Something our specialized evolution won't help us fight. We need humans' adaptive capabilities. We need their chaos. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the command center. The same black-armored figures from the Darwin Zone appeared on security feeds, moving with deadly purpose. They found us. Reynolds moved with liquid grace, drawing a weapon that definitely wasn't standard issue. Time for you to see some human adaptation up close, kid. Get to the archives, Vex Thor ordered as blast doors began sealing. Find Miller. The truth about humanity's potential is bigger than any of us guessed. The ancient archive sector was eerily quiet as Zach still accessed the forbidden entertainment databases. Reynolds covered the entrance, his weapon trained on the shadows while they worked. Got it. Their antennae twitched with excitement as they uncovered a treasure trove of human fiction. Stories that had been classified as too dangerous for public access. The first file was labeled Science Fiction, Early Space Age. As they played it, Zach Still's scales paled. These weren't just stories, they were prophecies. Humans had imagined faster-than-light travel centuries before discovering it was possible. They'd written about quantum communication before understanding quantum mechanics. That's nothing. Reynolds grinned, pointing to another file. Check out something called Star Trek. The archive showed humans had accurately predicted universal translators, matter replication, and even some technologies that hadn't been invented yet. But it wasn't just the technology. Their stories had solved societal problems that still plagued the galaxy. Here's the kicker. Reynolds pulled up a classified council report. Remember the Zentheri crisis? When their son was dying. The solution came from a human movie about redirecting stellar energy. The council passed it off as their own discovery. Zach Still's hands flew across the interface, finding more correlations. Human fantasy stories had predicted psychological patterns that helped cure the Great Depression on Rigel IV. Their superhero tales had inspired breakthrough medical treatments. We don't just imagine things, Reynolds explained, checking his motion sensors. We imagine solutions. Every problem, every crisis, somewhere, some human probably wrote a story about solving it. A deeper search revealed something even more startling. Human children's stories, simple tales about friendship and courage, had somehow predicted complex diplomatic solutions to interstellar conflicts. Their fairy tales contained psychological insights that the galaxy's best minds were only now beginning to understand. The Council wasn't just hiding human physical capabilities, Zach Still realized, downloading everything they could. They were hiding human imagination. Your species doesn't just adapt to problems. You imagine worlds where those problems don't exist, then make those worlds real. Suddenly, Reynolds' sensors beeped. Company's coming. Lots of it. He checked his weapon. Tell me, ever read any human stories about daring escapes? Before Zack Still could answer, the archive's main door exploded inward. Black armored figures poured through the smoke, but Reynolds was already moving, using tactics that seemed pulled straight from those forbidden adventure tales. Stories are power, he shouted over the chaos. And humans, we never stop telling them. Zack Still clutched the precious data crystals, understanding finally dawning. It wasn't human bodies the Council feared. It was human dreams. Dreams that could reshape reality itself. Deep in the abandoned sublevel of the Academy, Zack Still finally decoded Dr. Miller's final recording. The hologram flickered to life, showing the scientist in a panic, her lab in disarray. If you're watching this, you've discovered what they tried to hide. Miller's image said, the Council's greatest fear isn't human strength or adaptability. It's what happens when humans realize they've been lied to all this time. Reynolds kept watch while Zack Still dug deeper into Miller's files. Each document revealed layers of deliberate suppression, altered test results, fabricated studies, orchestrated accidents when scientists got too close to the truth. The Galactic Council didn't just find humanity. Miller's recording continued. They found a species that could outthink their best minds, outfight their strongest warriors, and imagine solutions their oldest civilizations never conceived. So they created the greatest propaganda campaign in galactic history. Security alerts flashed across Zack Still's neural interface. The black armored forces had found them again, but these weren't regular troops. The timestamp codes matched files from Miller's archive. These were the Council's ghost soldiers, the ones who made troublesome researchers disappear. Think about it, Reynolds whispered, checking his dwindling ammunition. Why would an advanced galactic civilization fear a primitive species so much they'd spend centuries convincing everyone, including humans themselves, that we're weak? Miller's hologram crackled with static. They're coming for me now, but they don't understand. Making humans think they're weak didn't limit their potential. It just masked it. Every human who discovers their true capabilities. The recording glitched as shadow figures entered Miller's lab. But before it cut out, she smiled. Operation Phoenix isn't just a project. It's what humans do best. Rising from their own ashes, stronger than before. Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Reynolds readied his weapon, but Zack Still noticed something strange about the approaching signatures. They matched neither Council forces nor Academy security. Right on schedule, Reynolds grinned, ready to meet the real Dr. Miller. The wall behind them slid open, revealing a hidden passage and a familiar face, not the disappeared scientist from decades ago, but someone who'd been hiding in plain sight all along. The truth hit Zack Still like a quantum surge. The conspiracy wasn't just about hiding human potential. It was about creating the perfect conditions for humanity's greatest talent, proving everyone wrong. The Emergency Council chamber buzzed with tension as thousands of delegates gathered for what they thought was a routine session. Zack Still stood at the podium, their scales shimmering with determination, while Reynolds and the real Dr. Miller waited in the wings. Honorable Council, Zack Still began, you've been summoned to witness the greatest revelation in galactic history. They activated the holographic display, showing not just Miller's research, but centuries of suppressed data. The chamber erupted as Miller herself walked onto the stage, not as the young scientist from the recordings, but as Amanda Chen, the Academy's head janitor for the past 30 years. The same position that had given her unlimited access to continue her research unnoticed. Your conspiracy failed, Miller announced, her voice carrying decades of patient calculation. You didn't just hide humanity's potential. You created the perfect testing ground for it. Every limitation you imposed became a challenge to overcome. Reynolds activated a building-wide broadcast. On every screen, Humans across the galaxy demonstrated their impossible abilities. Athletes breaking physical limits, scientists making intuitive leaps that revolutionized physics, artists creating works that transcended species boundaries. But here's what you really missed. Miller continued as chaos erupted in the chamber. Humans don't just overcome limitations, we thrive on them. Each barrier you created made us stronger. Every lie you told made us more determined to find the truth. The black armored forces burst in, but this time they faced squads of human peacekeepers who had been hiding in plain sight throughout the Council infrastructure. The result wasn't even close. Your own propaganda defeated you, Zack still declared over the commotion. You taught everyone that humans were weak, so no one noticed as they quietly became the strongest. You called them primitive, so no one saw them revolutionizing our science. You dismissed their stories, never realizing those stories were blueprints for the future. As the dust settled, Miller stepped forward one last time. The question isn't whether humans are ready for the galaxy. The question is the galaxy ready for humans who know their true potential? The council chamber fell silent, then erupted in a wave of questions, demands, and, from those who had known the truth all along, relieved laughter. The age of deception was over. In the back of the chamber, Zack still watched as millennia of carefully constructed lies crumbled. They had started this journey seeking academic truth. They ended it helping to reshape galactic civilization. Humanity, it turned out, had been teaching them all along. They just hadn't been ready to learn.